Hey everybody, Dimitri here with Cirque Supply, and I'm standing next to our classic rounded and squared overhead cabinets. Believe it or not, this is the first product we had ever made when we started out. I'm excited to tell you more about them. Now, if you follow us or you've seen any of our videos or posts, maybe you follow us on Instagram or seen the site, you already know about these cabinets. These are kind of our classic debut in the cabinet world. These are the rounded overhead cabinets. Initially, they were designed because I had hit my head one too many times on a square edge like this, and thought it would be cool to make something a little less painful to bump into, hence the birth of the rounded overhead cabinet. We had decided early on in this channel that we're not going to sugarcoat things and we're just going to tell them how they are. So in this video, I meant for it to be a little bit more of a helpful video, not so much of a sales pitch, and tell you why these cabinets might or might not be a good fit for you. I'll talk about some of the pros and cons versus other cabinets, and generally why we use these only for specific builds. Now let's talk about this rounded edge and when it may be a good idea and when it may not be a good idea. We made this for two main reasons. Number one, it just looks beautiful. When the light hits that rounded edge at the right angle, it's spectacular. But number two, more importantly, if you've been in vans a lot or you're building vans, if you're an upfitter, you've probably hit the corner of a cabinet with your head. It doesn't feel good. It makes you sit there and want to yell obscenities. You don't necessarily get that same experience with the rounded overhead cabinets. Granted, it still hurts if you hit your head hard enough, but you don't have sharp edges or corners that are gonna put holes in your north face hat. So in that respect, it's a good idea if you're gonna mount this in a high traffic area or you simply just love the look, but a bad idea if you need to maximize your storage space. The reason I say that is if you pay attention to just the geometry of this whole radius here, which ends up being 1.5 inches internally, but externally it's about 2.5 inches, that's actually lost storage space. You cannot use that for storing any kind of lighter goods, smaller goods. If you're storing bags, clothes, usually it doesn't end up being an issue, but if you have small items that might roll in and fall into these curves, it's not a good idea. It's just something worth noting, worth keeping in mind when you're choosing which cabinets are right for the job. And hopefully this gives you a little bit of a better idea when the round is appropriate and when it just isn't that good of an idea. Along the lines of realistic things you need to look out for when shopping cabinets is how do they mount? Because you can have the most beautiful cabinets in the world, but I promise you if they're a nightmare to put in and it extends your build deadline and costs you more money, you're never going to enjoy using them out in the wild. You're going to look at them and go, you son of a, cost me so much time and money, I don't even enjoy that you're there. I wish I would have never picked you. We've tried to avoid all that with how we build ours. Let me just talk to you a little bit about how these mount and when it would be a good fit for you and when these may not exactly fit your build and how you can get them to work. So pay attention to these two strips of mounting channels. These are meant to coincide with the first two rows, the actual rib nuts themselves in the beams in a Mercedes Sprinter. And before Transit and Promaster owners get crazy with me, listen, we have these designed for those vans too. It's not the same system. We use furring strips for our ceilings. Those are just difficult vehicles, but this is the best case scenario. Mercedes Sprinter, it's gonna line up with these two channels. These stretchers on the back also line up with the factory holes that go into our wall panels. And you may note that these are rather wide channels. We understand most people are not going to be using the same company for every part of their build. So if you're using our ceilings, these line up awesome, but you have thicker walls, well, that 1 inch wide channel gives you some play front to back. So you can do thinner walls, thicker walls, firm out. It's still gonna work and try to maintain the same curvature profile. And the washers that come with our fasteners are rather large. These are 2-inch washers. So no matter which side you shove it up against, it's gonna have enough coverage to firmly mount that cabinet. So that being said, this in a best case scenario will mount perfectly with our walls and ceilings. It will still mount with other walls and ceilings, but if you have something really crazy going on, you're furring out a lot, you have very thick walls, it's very important to note that routing this is just not going to be an option for you. Our stretchers come right up to the top here. They're inset in dados. If you're gonna rely on routing these cabinets to get them to fit your vehicle, I would not. It's not gonna work for you. There's other options out there and plenty of other companies that make something a little bit more universal. But if you're just looking to match that factory profile, that's the case that this will be a good fit for you. All right, another thing we get asked often, another thing to look out for is lights. Do you actually want lights in your cabinets? Well, a lot of people don't need them. A lot of people don't want them. The short answer for us is if you don't want them, just reach out before placing your order or when placing your order. Leave a note. I don't want puck lights. I'll show you how they go in and kind of how they work. They're already inset in your cabinet. There are some relief channels cut in. You can actually see one here and one up top. where the wire would tuck in. We staple them before, you can staple them in the top after. But these guys are meant to actually come out, pass through between sections, mount in your ballast. If you have a question on how to cover them, we do some general practice stuff on covering ours in our builds. Quite honestly, just taking some scrap wood, 1/4 inch, felt, whatever, and covering these back stretchers once your cabinet's mounted is the easiest way to go. Although there are 1,000 ways that you can crack that nut. So yeah, use your own judgment. A lot of people choose not to cover the wires. I would suggest you do. It's safer. You don't want stuff to clip them, tear them out. But ultimately, if you end up not wanting the puck lights, all you got to do is ask. If you wonder, do I need puck lights? Do I even want them? You don't know what you don't know. I will say if you're mounting these over a kitchen or a bed, you want puck lights. Otherwise, if you've got a pretty solid ceiling lighting situation, maybe go without them. The good thing about puck lights is you can always add them if you don't have them, but you can never get rid of them if the holes are already there. I hope you found this video helpful. Hopefully you can have a little bit of a better idea when deciding with overhead cabinets what's the right style for you, what's the right size to you, or ultimately what's the right company, what's the right material, and things to look out for. Just to recap quickly, that's how it mounts, how the space is used up, whether it's curved or rounded, and most importantly of all, what kind of a build you plan on doing and whether or not this system or other systems are compatible with your project plan. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below or shoot us an email. If you have any questions or you want to look at any of the products, check the description. We have links to it below. And as always, happy building.